now that we've learned about how equilibrium is attained in the market for a single good, let us now look at things that can happen in the market to change the equilibrium. And so essentially there's 4 things that can happen. Demand can increase, demand can decrease, supply can increase, supply can decrease. We're going to start with the demand side and we'll do these in order. So we start, and this is very important, we start with a market in equilibrium. Right? So this is the way we're telling the story. We start at equilibrium, then something happens, and then we work out the effects and changes that will take us to a new equilibrium. So let us start by thinking, okay, because there was a change in Seattle's minimum wage law, $15 an hour, so wages increased. People's income increased, right? So when income goes up, income going up, remember, that's going to affect the demand side, right? So when income goes up, people's demand for a good, in this case we are talking about apples, starts to go up because you got more money, you can buy more stuff. So where you used to be at D0, you now have, look at that arrow, an increase or an outward shift in the demand curve. I'm going to call that D1. As soon as that happens, take a look at what's happening. Supply is exactly where it is. Demand has now gone out, right? So what happened is at that original price of P0, the suppliers are still supplying Q0, but the consumers are buying Q1. So suddenly an excess demand opened up at the new price, at the old price, right? So suddenly an excess demand opened up at the old price because demand increased. And now we know what happens because we know the equilibrium process. When there is an excess demand, producers start to increase prices because they figure they can sell more stuff. As that happens, producers increase their quantity supplied because they're getting higher prices. Consumers start shrinking their quantity demanded, but along the new demand curve. And the excess demand slowly disappears until we reach this new curve, this new equilibrium point right here, which I'm going to call P star and Q star. So what we can say is that when demand increases, equilibrium price goes up and equilibrium quantity goes up. Again, remember, all of this depends on the equilibrium process working out and us being in partial equilibrium and not looking at various feedback loops, right? So this is what happens when you have an increase in demand. Now that we've seen what happens when we have an increase in demand, let's take a look at what happens when we have a decrease in demand. So again, you start at equilibrium. So here is my demand curve, here is my supply curve, and I'm going to call them D0S, D0 to indicate it's the original. Original price, equilibrium P0, original price, original quantity, equilibrium Q0. And now let us say something happens. Let us say that the price of a substitute good goes down. So we know what happens, right? So when the price of substitutes goes down, people start buying the substitute instead of this good. So the demand for this good is going to now shift in. To D1. So there is an inward shift, and now we can tell the story same as we did last time. At the original price of P0, suppliers are still supplying Q0. But consumers are consuming here on that new demand curve. They're consuming at Q1. This time what opens up is an excess supply. And now we know what happens. When there is an excess supply, producers can't sell everything. And when they can't sell everything, price competition means they start dropping the prices. As the prices drop, the suppliers automatically start cutting back quantity supplied along that original supply curve. And consumers, as the price drops, starts increasing their quantity demanded along the new demand curve. And this process continues until that excess supply has been wiped out. The end result of this process is a new equilibrium, P star, Q star, and in this case, the new equilibrium price is lower than the original equilibrium price, and the new equilibrium quantity is lower than the original equilibrium quantity. So this is what we mean when we say when demand decreases, equilibrium price goes down and equilibrium quantity goes down. Again, remember, this is all a partial equilibrium story of what's happening when you have a single shift and there are no feedback loops across markets and you're looking at one market at a time.